Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Alaska cares about their post offices. They're a critical lifeline to many of our communities. You know it probably well. And first, I want to say thank you for your willingness to serve. I have a couple questions, and then I'll leave it at that. I know we have votes coming up pretty quickly here, so let me first give you a couple examples. One is Skagway, Alaska, small community, about 1,000 people, year-round residents, but on any single day in the summer, it can swell to 12,000 people because of the tourist season and the activities of the cruise ship industry and so forth. We have, at times, 3 seasonal positions, but they're hard to fill and keep them filled in a timely manner for the season. And what happens is, as you can imagine, the small store owners can't get their product because it comes in through postal, so it's piling up. I mean, not literally just a few boxes. I mean, it is piling up.
Yeah.
And they cannot get their product to their stores because they don't have enough people in the facility. We have some temporaries that have been shipped from Juneau in order to satisfy this, but Juneau also has cruise ships that come in. So it just dominoes very rapidly. And I don't know if you have any comments, not specifically on that, but the understanding that we have to customize the hiring practices or the ability to staff based on these unique community needs. It's not just for us. I mean, there's other states that have similar spikes, but we anticipate just in the southeast region this year alone 50,000 more visitors in a 90-day period. So you can imagine the flow that happens, and it's huge. So again, 1,000-person facility goes to 12,000 in one day, and will be like that daily for 90 days or so. Any comments you'd like to give either one?
This speaks not directly, but I think is close to it. One of the things I mentioned in my answer to the policy questions raised was that I would like to see much more flexibility in terms, and I would hope the unions would begin to work more on this, moving people from what they call craft to another craft, such that if you had people in one part of Alaska or so that you had to have more flexibility on what are called work
cross-training.
Yes. So I can't help but think if we did get those labor rule flexibilities, that the Postal Service, as Jim has said earlier, they're so good with delivery. I mean, this is an organization that executes well. It just needs to have, that's the second area of flexibility it needs. So I know Alaska well. I think we need to figure out how we can get that delivery working more efficiently.
Very good.
Senator, you have identified a very important peaking problem. We have those kinds of problems in the Postal Service. The Board of Governors went out to visit the UPS Center in Kentucky and the FedEx Center in
Memphis.
And what we observed there is remarkable. I mean, basically, planes come in about midnight.
Yep, I've been there.
You've seen the same thing?
Absolutely. We're the international hub for FedEx and UPS.
Well, I mean, what they do, those companies hire people to work 4-hour shifts.
Right.
Yeah.
And to deal with a peak. They have another smaller peak in the mornings, and they deal with they hire a lot of college students. But we don't have the flexibility to do that under our craft contracts. We just need to work.
And we used to years ago.
We had
30 years ago or so, I understand, Christmas mail type thing.
Yeah. So, but we need to have the flexibility to address those. And from the standpoint of a company, it makes no sense to have mail piled up that we can't process.
Right.
I mean, we drive away revenue when we do that.
Right.
So,
So you recognize that's an important piece of the
Yes,
equation.
yes.
Well, first I want to say thank you. Now, also, I will mention that, as I said, UPS, FedEx, Anchorage International, which you also have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation right next door to theirs. It's the international hub. Anything west of the Mississippi that's going international is coming through Anchorage, and
Right.
and so
over the top.
Over the top. So it's big business. We've 700 wide-body cargo planes come in there every week from 26 different countries, serving the global economy in regards to service and products. So we think it's important, so I'm glad you're willing to do that. I've been there at 11 o'clock at night at Memphis, or 10:30, 11, when they start rolling in. It's an unbelievable site. I think people who have not seen that should see it because it gives you an understanding of the uniqueness. We have a unique situation also in Alaska, same thing. There's a certain period of time, they come in and they move. And so, one, I would first thank you for your recognition of the flexibility there that's necessary. If I can go to another one, then I'll do one quick one after that, and that is, we do have a growing problem, and that is drug trafficking that's starting to occur through Postal Service, product moving through. We have only one inspection office in the state. It's based in Anchorage. Now, you got to put it in perspective, the size of the state.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's...
Bigger than Texas.
That's right. We would acknowledge that. I have a Texas joke, but I won't say it. But I'll just say that, yes, you're correct. And it's important because what happens when drug trafficking occurs and it gets into a rural village, it's like a plague. And it happens very quickly because these are roadless villages. In other words, 80% of our communities are not accessible other than by boat or plane. So once the trafficker figures out that that's the place the access point is the postal system, and they can get it in there, then it's a very quick plague that starts to occur in those villages. So I'd ask you, and if you could, and think about that as you're looking at the needs of the postal system reform, which we're big supporters of here. We think it's important, but also the inspection component of drug trafficking that's starting to occur in the system. And it's a hard one because you can't look at every package.
Yeah.
But maybe there's some best practices, as you've noticed from UPS and FedEx and others. Maybe there's something we can do on a unified basis. As you all know, the postal system is also the last mile for some of those guys. And so the more we can figure this out together, the more we can grab this drug trafficking and squeeze it hard, because it's an economic issue. If it's hard for them to move the product, then they won't move it.
Are there connections that you know of with Homeland Security?
There are. We've actually talked to the DEA, FBI, and others, and we'd be happy to share this with you. We just think it's really devastating to our rural communities because once it's in, and it doesn't take a lot of product to move through a system. So, and the problem is we have one inspection office in Anchorage. That's it, and that's great. That's where a lot of volume goes. But they've figured out the systems and the routes. And so I just want to kind of bring that to your awareness if I could. The last, and I'll end on this, and I thank the chairman for allowing me to say a few comments. One, obviously, I'd love to invite you all up. I know some of you have probably been there, but always like to have folks come up and see the system and from not only the hub, Anchorage, but the rural hub, and then the village itself, how this system works. The other thing is we're waiting. I know the Postal Service released a plan to protect rural post offices. Great. Unfortunately, it didn't talk about postal branches. And so I'm curious, or just want to put on the record, you don't have to answer this, but we'd like to get the Postal Service to release that plan with regards to the future of postal branches.
Okay.
They did it with post offices, which was great, and I think we all appreciated that effort they did, but it's this next piece. So what's happened in some communities, they're kind of wondering, how are we in this mix? We didn't realize that when the report came out until we started getting calls. And then we realized the branches were a piece that was missed in the equation. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.